Welcome. This is Artist on Art, yay, for April 30th, 2014. It's a bittersweet show today because it's the end of my Dynamite month-long special interview series. I have the final two Dynamites here in the studio, David Harris and Holly Findlater. How are you two both doing? Thanks for coming up here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Doing well.
Yes.
So, as you've been probably noticing, I've had the wonderful pleasure of being able to get 100% of the Dynamites graduating this year. This has been a first for me. I've been creating archives of all the Danum graduates since 2009, so it's a huge accomplishment. And thank you both, and thank all of the Danums that have come up here over the last April, because we're in the final throes of putting on the MFA exhibition, which is a huge deal that's happening. Opening night celebration is happening tomorrow night. It's a free reception that's Thursday, May 1st, from 6 p.m. to, let's say, 9 o'clock, would you say?
Yeah, 6 to 9 is the technical.
For
time.
Yeah, and then there'll be, I think there's a bunch of movies that's going to need it to be dark, right? And it gets dark. And it's in the dark, the Digital Arts Research Center here at UCSC, in between the music and the art barns over by the theater over on the west side of the campus. And it's really exciting. It's a great, great art, interactive, fun event. It's usually really successful, and I have no doubt that this year is going to be just fabulous. Everyone has really had some interesting and wonderful digital, interactive, a lot of games. You two are performance artists, multimedia artists, activists, would you say?
Yeah.
Both of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so the name of the exhibition, which is a pretty kind of touchy-feely thing to come up with, it's a challenge because you got to have an umbrella for everybody's pieces, and sometimes you have a big cohort up here. We'll have 15 graduates. This year it was 11. It's pretty big group
I think
of people.
we're 13.
13?
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought it was 13.
Oh, maybe you're right.
I think it's 11.
Yeah. Oh, is it 11?
Well,
Okay.
it's
Maybe.
Okay. It's there. 11. I am right. It's 11.
It's 11, yeah. I think it's the next group is 13.
Right. Holly, were there some really big personalities that made you think of two in one? Anyways, I'm just joking.
Some of us have multiple personalities.
Well,
so.
artists in general do, and we can have really big egos as well. And so I have the pleasure of having this show, Artist on Art, because of the Danum program and because I was supported when I was a Danum student here to be able to take the radio class that allows you to have a show on KZSC. This is a totally student-run, 100% student-run radio station. And so this is my way of thanking and giving back to the Danum program that I love so much. And I'm telling you folks, it's going to be such a great party over here at tomorrow night from 6 to 9 over at the Dark. It's free. You get to see the artists. You get to talk to them. You get to play with their stuff. Give yourself a couple hours because there's a lot of content. And today is our final two. Again, that's David Harris and Holly Findlater. Holly, let's start with you today, and we'll talk to Harris a little bit. But Harris, you feel free to, talk if you want to throw something in there.
Great.
So Holly, your piece.
It's installation, a multimedia installation.
Is called Rendering Ohm.
Correct.
And so it's interesting. You come from a photography background?
Yes. Well, I first started studying photography in 1997 and did that for about 6 years. And during that time period, I also did television production studio, but this was before it was nonlinear. And then I got into video editing. So my actual BFA project ended up being a digital video piece that I did.
So a Bachelor's of Fine Arts for you folks out there, BFA. And so, Holly, you're doing a multimedia piece that involves 6 monitors. So you have quite a bit of video content in your installation piece.
Correct. And the video content is appropriated footage from YouTube.
So when you say appropriated, that means you downloaded it and took it.
Correct. And it all came from... That's the public source.
It's a public source.
Because it's comprised of drone warfare footage and industrial slaughterhouse footage, which is usually not something that the media is going to put out, except that other people will put it out.
So the usual news formats, the usual television news that we have, they have kind of, they can't really show graphic things on. I don't know what the FCC rules are around it. I know that there's like interesting things like they can't show the caskets coming back from Afghanistan.
Well, and that's part of the point is that we can show it, but we choose not to. And so that's a big component of my installation or just the project in general, is that we don't show what we are doing in order to hide it and be sort of passive players in a game that's actually really affecting many other people.
So you're listening to Artist on Art. I am your hostess, Nada Milkovich. I'm speaking with Holly Findlater. She is a graduating student of the Digital Arts and New Media program, and she has a show, she's a part of a show that's happening tomorrow, Undercurrents. It's the MFA exhibition show, which runs through Sunday, that is May 4th, and the free reception is happening tomorrow night, May 1st, from 6 to 9 p.m. And then I believe the dark will be open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 to 4 or 10 to
12 to 5.
12 to 5. Sorry about that, folks. 12 to 5. Don't come earlier. 12 to 5. And if you come up on Saturday and Sunday, parking is free, which is a handy-dandy thing to know about.
Definitely.
So Rendering Ohm is the name of Holly Findlater's installation piece that includes a multimedia video component to it, and it explores a very interesting connection. Well, you're creating this very interesting connection between contemporary industrial warfare and industrial slaughter.
Correct.
And this is as practiced by us, the USA.
Yes. So it's contemporary between, the 21st century. Since, post-domestic society.
Post-domestic society. And you also look through the lens of various religious rituals and effigies. And I had to look up the word effigies because I wanted to make sure I fully understood what you were talking about when you put this together. And I love the definition. It's a roughly made model of a particular person made in order to be damaged or destroyed as a protest or expression of anger. Holly, would you say that's what you were looking at?
In part. One of the components is that people can destroy each other through these means of separation and through religious symbols and through practices. We are passive players in the destruction of other things in order to not to control, but to sort of create a distance and an othering of the people that we deem to be enemies. And I think that that's an internal struggle that has been practiced through religion and also through warfare, and how it plays out is very I don't think it's too obvious, especially since we've been coming from a state of image making, and the entire linear quality to that has led up to this point of we don't want to see what we destroy. And
that's interesting. So you're saying that perhaps the psychological state in which we live in here at the U.S., where we are fighting warfare with drones and have a complete disconnect as to what we're doing. There's no people involved.
Well, that's one of the main lines that I'm trying to connect, is that we view animals as something that's separated from humanity. And then in order to do that, we have to tell ourselves, like, what is the difference between us? And so we describe differences as ways of making something other. So we create warfare in another country for a reason that, a lot of people probably don't even know why, but in order to do that, we have to say this person is a different species, and therefore we feel comfortable knowing that we're killing civilians and children, and with the touch of a button from another country, and we don't. There's no discussion on the table. Like, for some reason, it's just like hiding animals in big, giant boxes in the Midwest and letting them die and be slaughtered so that we can have chicken McNuggets, So we've lost that ability, I think, through industrial times to have community. And, this all started in Paris, with the abattoir, and just this sort of...
This all started in Paris? The industrialization of animals? Is that what you mean?
The industrialization of slaughter.
Of slaughter happened in Paris. What years are you talking about?
1913.
So at the beginning of the 20th century.
And a little bit earlier, but it was this shift from communities into the city, and it's actually funny because this is where we have the prison system beginning, and how we push things into so-called private spaces, but which originally were public spaces, and then we privatized it and actually started hiding it away, because the slaughter. Also in Chicago, the
meat houses.
The meat houses, going back to the jungle. And so we started hiding these things away because people didn't want to see them, although they knew they were happening. And I just think that that's a really psychologically interesting combination with drone operation, because now we have people that sit in simulated cockpits in Nevada who pretend like they're in a cockpit and their job is to just sit there all day and watch, and then someone from high above makes the decision to say, hey, press the button, and the person in the cockpit doesn't actually make that decision. And then these people end up going home at night after these shifts, and they have the highest rates of PTSD.
I was gonna talk to you about that. Holly Findlater talking about her show, her piece, her installation, multimedia piece, Rendering Ohm, and that I had read an article about the drone operators having the highest rate of PTSD because they have this enormous disconnection, and it can't. I can't imagine how you psychologically bring those two parts of your life together.
Well, that's one of the things that drove my this project, and because I felt like as a society in whole, or as a globalized society, we have these total disconnections, and how it makes indecisions, and how it makes on a whole people uncomfortable. And we have a lot of activist things happening. It's like what happened in Egypt, and even now in
the spring uprising of 2012.
Yeah, and but then I also was thinking about animals. And so to begin my project, the base of it is I asked myself, could I actually raise and slaughter my own chickens? But it was also based on the fact that industrialized chickens have been bred over time to become these big breasted, like just meat. They're a commodity. I mean, they're just meat and that's it. And they're treated really badly. But they're bred to become that way. And so I asked myself, could I do that? And so I raised 2 industry chickens and 4 heritage breeds, and then raised them. I tried to make the industry chicken be more chickenly, because they are actually they will just sit around and sit on their breasts and eat, and in a way they're bred so that they'll be slaughtered after 6 to 8 weeks. So it's actually more humane to slaughter them than to let them live, because they'll die of heart attacks. They
become obese.
They become obese.
And they can't walk.
No. And they sit there and they break their legs and their wings. In fact, I forced my chickens to run around in the yard to dig for worms, which they normally wouldn't do, because I had noticed, like, wow, they actually just will sit there and just eat the whole time. And it's like this weird line between what is humane and then if we treat our animals that way, what we consume, if we treat our consumption in that manner, then how are we treating each other? And so that's why I was going through these layers of just religions that promote peace, but are very passive in the way that they become passive over time, because people stop paying attention to their own actions.
Holy moly, Holly Findlater. I knew it was going to be deep when I saw your piece synopsis. I was like, holy moly. It's pretty hard stuff. But I think it's brilliant, connecting industrial warfare with industrial food production, particularly animal as food production. You mentioned the meat, the Jungle. What was the name of it? That's by Joseph Campbell?
Upton Sinclair.
Upton Sinclair wrote a book, early?
It's like 1920, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And he talked about and I remember reading that and being hugely affected.
Well, it affected everybody at the time. It became like, I think that's like the beginning where people started hiding it away again, because illnesses and the idea of this bloody slaughter taking place on a mass scale really confused people.
Right. And just how that damaging, it's horrendous. It's horrendous what we're doing and we continue to do.
Oh, yes. I mean, one of the things that really got me started was driving by what I call Cowschwitz, which is the Harris Ranch?
The Harris Ranch over in I-5 over by Buttonwillow, is it?
No, it's by Coalinga.
Coalinga, that's right.
And I really got fascinated by the fact that there's this huge space that's on the side of the highway, and you are technically not allowed. It's illegal for you to even photograph it, but it's also hidden behind all these trees. And then at the same time, at the next rest stop is their restaurant. And then when you see what actually this Cowschwitz looks like, it's like,
and the stench, you can smell it before you can see it.
I mean, it's really like, wow, how are we doing that? Like, that just fascinated me. And so that kind of got me on a kick of, I've been studying agriculture for quite a time, and I have a permaculture background, and so, which I would like to also right now make acknowledgments to my to the Harrisons for being
Helen and Newton Harris
for being like the best supporters I've ever had, and
they're wonderful. Helen and Newton Harrison they've been brought up quite a few times over the last month,
and they have been bringing me up.
So Holly, how did it end up with the chickens? Were you able to kill them?
I did it, and I made it into a ritual, and did it in a way that it wouldn't frighten the other chickens when it happened. And it was hard. I cried the entire time.
Oh, it's gonna make me cry just thinking about it.
Yeah, I completely cried the entire time.
But I couldn't do it.
But I learned everything off YouTube. This is like the other reason why I want to use the appropriated footage, is because I learned everything how to do this, and it turned out perfect. And then we had a big big family dinner with my grandparents and aunts and my parents and cousins, and
because your grandparents might actually remember what it was like.
Oh
before.
Yeah, they were like, my grandpa was just totally he was excited, and everyone was just like, wow, this is great. And he helped me actually do all the
prep,
the chopping and everything. And
and you're all, this is my art project.
I know, yeah. Like, what does that even mean?
How'd you explain that to your grandparents?
I don't know. They're down with it, you know. So
of course, because it's the best chicken they've had in years.
And they were huge chickens, and so I was just so happy to like feed people and nourish people, because once I got over the shock of the slaughter and doing everything by hand, and by the way, thanks so much to my parents and for housing me during this entire experience. And now my parents have the other 4 chickens that and they're laying eggs every day. So anyways,
thank you, Mom, Pop, Findlater.
Yeah. So it ended up, I mean, once the slaughter was ended and it became, you know, the resting point for the chickens, and then cooking them, it became more of a family experience, which was a big part of why I wanted to make people recognize that, you know, just because someone is in a different country and you want their resources, they are not commodities. Like, they are families as well.
Hallelujah. Holly Findlater. That was fabulous. We're going to have to take a quick break because I got to like really process all of this tremendous work. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Mm-hmm. No,
hey, everybody,
you.
Stay tuned. We're going to be talking to David Harris, and probably a few more words with Holly, because I feel like we're just beginning our conversation.